To all the wrecked girls lost in the messiest throes of love and friendship and searching for your way. Chapter 1 of a Map for Wrecked Girls by Jessica Taylor. We sat at the edge of the ocean, my sister Henry and I, inches apart but not touching at all. The blue horizon was only beginning to swallow the sun and I was already shivering. We'd been so sure someone would find us by now. Alex was the first to say help would be coming soon, but I didn't quite believe him. When Henry said it, in that moment, I knew it had to be true. Only months before, I trusted Henry more than I trusted myself. Wherever she told me to go, I'd follow. If she said something was true, then it had to be so. With nobody to save us in sight, I tied my hopes to the memory of Henry from before, the older sister with best advice, the one who never started hating me. Rescue crews take time, I said now. My legs wobbled from the life raft bobbing in the ocean all day. I hugged my knees to my chest, forcing them still. They probably don't even know we're missing yet. A tear ran fast down Henry's cheek. She wiped it away, and with it, she took the last of hope in her. For the first time, I was afraid we died on the shore. Henry shot a glare down the far end of the beach where Alex stood with his bare feet in the surf. He kept his back to us like if we didn't see his face, we wouldn't know he was crying. Sobs racked his shoulders. He's a real pillar of strength, Emma, Henry said. Good job picking him out, even though Alex had put at least 30 feet between him and us. In some ways, my sister felt farther away. The first time I saw Alex gliding down the resort sidewalk on his rickshaw, arms tanned and legs muscled from seasons of pedaling through sand, I thought he looked strong enough to be my solution. He was broad-shouldered and shaggy-haired, but not too pretty. Exactly the kind of boy Henry loved to own. Now, as he turned to face the ocean, I felt like I was violating him by watching his tears fall so hard. He gulped at air and gasped for breath. I wanted to make my way down to the beach to comfort him, but I couldn't come up with anything meaningful to say. Maybe there weren't enough words inside me to tell him, I'm sorry Casey's dead. I'm sorry you dove down into the blue water over and over again, grasping for a part of him, any part of him, and every single time your hands came up empty. I wished I could say. I held my breath every time you went under because all I could think was that I couldn't lose you too. This was a secret. I'd only met Alex the day before. Still, I dusted sand from my damp swimsuit bottoms now and left Henry behind. The wavy ends of Alex's hair, black and still wet with ocean water, didn't brush his shoulders but sprung beside his ears. I pressed my palm against his bare back, warm, and the moment my skin touched his, he sucked in a breath. Are you okay? He wiped his eyes with his wrist and pushed back his hair, both hands gripping his head before falling at his sides. No, Jones, I'm not fucking boat. Alex never called me Emma, only Jones. It felt sexier being called my last name, an androgynous name like Henry's. 2 days ago, nothing had ever made me feel sexy before. Now I couldn't feel anything but desperate. I'm not sure anyone's going to find us tonight. It could take. I checked the ocean one more time, still empty, infinite, heartbreaking days. Weeks, Casey didn't tell anyone we were taking off. Nobody knew we were going. It's a hell of an area to canvas. Salt from the ocean had crystallized on his face, making the few brown freckles on his cheeks sparkle, the small bump on his nose more prominent. I wondered how he'd broken it. A surfboard maybe, or a fist fight, I wanted to know. His green eyes flicked down the beach toward my sister. No one would think Casey'd take off this far. Alex wasn't blaming Henry, not out loud at least. But I remembered her stroking up the inside of Casey's thigh as he stood at the wheel, saying things close to his ear. Things like, farther, Casey, out in the middle of the very blue. I don't want to see land anymore, take me far, far away. I'm sorry. You got nothing to be sorry about, Jones. He was wrong. He didn't know he and his cousin Casey had tangled themselves in a web. My sister and I couldn't stop weaving, and now for poor Casey, there couldn't be any escape. But I do for Henry. A shadow stretched out onto the sand before us. We turned, and Henry stood with her arms looped in the hollow of her back, her head eclipsing the setting sun. She was nearly naked in only her mint green bikini. We'd stripped down to the barest of our layers to let our clothes dry, even though my shirt was sopping wet. When it came down to it, with Henry's eyes on me, and worst of all, Alex, my fingertips froze at the hem of my shirt. Henry gave me a smug smile when I didn't take it off, as if me standing there in my boy-cut swimsuit bottoms and dolphin t-shirt made her the winner of a contest I refused to enter. I was glad she interrupted. I almost admitted out loud that Henry hadn't said a word when Alex finally reached Casey and turned his ashen face to the sky. That Henry just swam for the life raft and never took back when we saw Casey's forehead was split open to the bone, a thin trail of blood marbling the water. Maybe Alex hadn't noticed. He was too busy struggling to keep Casey's body from being swept under the waves. Henry held her phone now and frowned, striking her coral-painted pedicure deeper into the sand. Well, my phone is trashed. Our phones, mine was at the bottom of the ocean, but if Henry survived, then your phone, I said to Alex. Did it make it? It was on the deck. He tensed, and as I nodded to his backpack, this is Casey's, his was on the deck too. Henry shook her phone and smacked it against her thigh. Stupid thing won't even turn on. I took it from her, and with the front of my t-shirt wiped away drops of water that had been trapped under her gold snakeskin case. Wait till morning, maybe it'll dry out by then. Morning, she sighed. Okay, are we going to figure out sleeping arrangements soon, or would we rather stumble around in the dark? Alex faced the ocean. Give me a sec. He was looking for something, rescue or Casey. I didn't know which one. I didn't know which. Only that either would appear anytime soon. Alex, my hand circled his arms and squeezed above his elbow. It was your fault. He shrugged me off and sprung away. What did you say to me? I said it was your fault. Of course it wasn't my fault. He grabbed his clothes off the rocks and yanked the shirt onto his shoulders, leaving it unbuttoned. He turned to me. Why the hell would you even say that? I opened my mouth to tell him I didn't know that it was just something people said, but Henry pulled me away and led me back to our end of the beach. As the sky went from blue to gray, the ocean got choppier and the tide washed debris to our shore. Some items we recognized, some we didn't. A piece of scrap wood here and an empty Coke can there, nothing that mattered. The shock lifted and I knew we had to do something to get through the night. My toes squished in the wet sand as I stood. It's getting dark. Motionless, Alex watched from down the beach as Henry helped me carry the life raft up the rocky shore. The coarse sand under my feet was nothing like the white sand we'd lounged on for the last 3 days in Puerto Rico. We wedged the raft between two dry grassy shrubs, steps from the palm trees dotting the top of the beach and far from the waterline. Our eyes met, Alex's and mine. We held the stare until something registered in him and he set his body into motion. He fished an old tarp from the surf and shook out the water before he tossed it over the top of the waist-high shrubs. The thin layer of plastic gave me a sense of protection I pretended wasn't fake. My sister draped herself across the raft first. She stretched her arms over and head as if sinking into the down mattress at the hotel, not inflated or orange plastic, as if she didn't care Casey died today, as if we weren't lost. I waved Alex over and with my hip nudged Henry closer to the edge. No, he dropped to the sand a few yards away. You two take it. I'm fine down here. Come on, there's plenty of room. No, Henry said there isn't, but You won't be comfortable. I looked from Henry to Alex. Yo, Jones stopped. The way he said it, all raspy and soft, made me seal my lips. I've slept in worse places than this. Before I could say anything, Alex lifted up again from the sand and moved toward the beach. At the water's edge, he dropped to his knees and hugged Casey's backpack to his chest. I'm worried about him, I said. Henry made a face in the moonlight and closed her eyes. Worry about yourself. Survival of the fittest. I watched her for the slightest bit of regret before I lost it. Casey died today. Alex's cousin is never coming back. What part of that don't you understand? She opened her eyes but didn't look at me. Whatever, Emma. I sighed. My white jacket, scratchy with salt water, was mostly dry, so I bunched it under my head. But the harder I tried to sleep, the more my body ached and swayed with the motion of the waves, my thoughts spinning even though we were now still. Our mom wouldn't even know we were lost. So like a beach shipwreck so far. Come back to our hotel room on Loquilo Beach at the end of her workday a couple hours ago and realized we weren't there. She wouldn't worry at first. She always said teenage girls were wild at heart and the only way to make them wilder was to try to cage them. When we weren't there the next morning, that's when would call the local police. She'd never make the connection we were on Casey's boat, but someone would notice how it never turned to its slip. Even if they didn't know they were looking for us, someone had to be looking for Casey. Either way, mom would be broken. Within the year, she'd lost dad and now us. I crossed my arms and giving her a few inches of space, curled my body in the shape of Henry's to myself. I had the subconscious might hear and somehow dissolve the barriers between us. Come back to me, Henry. A tear sliced my cheek, the overcast sky and Henry's SPF 8 hadn't protected me from sunburn as much as I'd hoped, and my chest shook from trying to hold it all in. This trip was supposed to fix everything. Henry rolled over to face me. Please don't cry. Her touch was soft as she pushed a wispy curl from her eyes. You'll just get dehydrated faster. The back of Henry's wrist grazed my knee in the moonlight. Her open palm waited. I slipped my hand into hers, managed a small smile. The abysmal loneliness that had consumed me for months, I felt it ebbing away. Maybe everything was fixed now, just not in the way I'd planned. As my eyes closed on their own and my aching limbs relaxed, Henry's voice startled me awake. This doesn't mean I forgive you, so we're clear. So like a little beach shipwreck or something. The main character here, I'm not sure her name. Henry is her best friend. It's like a boy-girl name. Alex is a guy that was there too. She likes him or something, but he's not. He's saying it's her fault. The narrator pushing her away. I believe Henry's her best friend, and Casey's also there. I see here, and basically a shipwreck, and they're trying to get some sleep right now, trying to recover.